Hello, I'm Peter Vaughan, and today I'm at the Caravan and Motorhome Club's Clumber Park site in Nottinghamshire, and I'm very excited because today I've got hold at last of Auto Trail's new Grande Frontier. What's so exciting about that? Well, this is a British A-Class, and I can't remember the last time I tested a British A-Class. Names like the Eldest Auto King, the Swift Bel Air, the Auto Sleeper Luxor, they seem like distant memories, as does Auto Trail's previous Grande Frontier. They only made about 60 of them, and that's 15 years ago nearly. This one is brand new to the market, and this is the biggest of 3 models in the range. It's the GF 88. Now that 88 means it's 8.8 metres, actually 8.79 metres long. It's on a 5-ton 6-wheeler, that's tag axle Alco chassis. Fiat power, of course, and this one's been upgraded to the 178 bhp engine. It's also got the 9-speed automatic gearbox, leather upholstery and the rear travel seats. So the price of this one is about 107 grand. Prices just start for this model at just under 100 grand. When you see it side on, you certainly appreciate just how big it is. It's quite a walk from one end of the van to the other. But it's also quite a handsome beast, isn't it? With these framed windows, the awning neatly recessed along the top, alloy wheels, of course, and everything you see here, apart from the leather upholstery and the travel seat that I mentioned, everything is standard. So there's not the long list of options that you get sometimes on German vans. What you don't get here is a double floor, so it hasn't got as much storage as other A-classes of this size. You have got some external storage though. There's flap there, that's your gas locker, and that opens with like a bonnet release catch inside. Then you've got hatch into under seat storage there, and of course the garage at the back, although the garage on this one isn't perhaps really a true garage. There is an HB version with a high bed, HP high bed of course, but this is the standard model. So standard headroom in the garage is 840 millimetres. Not enough perhaps for bikes, but enough for plenty of outdoor furniture, barbecues and all the rest of your stuff. And you've got a ton of payload, slightly less on this one by the time you've allowed for the automatic gearbox and the travel seats, but in standard form, a ton of payload. And then round the back is the traditional Auto Trail styling with the spare wheel covered and mounted on the back panel. Of course, launching a brand new A-Class is no small undertaking. A lot of European brands have 30-40 years of experience of building A-Classes, and Auto Trail, like its UK rivals, has only dabbled in this sector in the past. However, it is part of the Trigano group, and Trigano builds A-Classes in Italy, in France, in Germany, and Auto Trail has managed to lean on that expertise and borrow some of it. And borrow some components too. Yes, the styling is pure Grande Frontier, but these mirrors, you'll find those on a French A-Class. This windscreen, that's used by an Italian one. And the cab door structure, that's been borrowed too. So that gives you a lot more reassurance. There's also the way Auto Trail builds the body. So it's built as a box, a complete box that is then mounted onto the chassis, and the last bit to go on is this front cap. Now the front cap of course includes the bonnet. Now you release it from inside and then just this little catch, and then, well, it's the usual A-Class letterbox, but they have remembered that you need to fill up your windscreen washer. For anything else you'll need a funnel, but it's no worse than any other. LED headlights are standard, and, well, as I said before, it's quite a handsome looking beast, isn't it? it doesn't look any smaller when you come round this side, does it? But you can see now the cab door I mentioned, and of course that is on the driver's side, unlike most imported A-classes where the driver's door of course becomes a passenger door, because they don't normally, there are exceptions, but they don't normally swap the layout around. And then here, this is an unusual feature, you've got these sort of coach style lifting skirts. You can see your 2 leisure batteries there, your mains hookup goes in there, and you've got your nice wide bore drain for your waste tank. Waste tank is quite small though, 85 litres. Fresh water is 130 litres. Both are underfloor, but they are 12 volt heated, so probably not as good for serious winter camping if you go skiing as having a motorhome where your water tanks are built into a double floor. If you can't get close to a waste point, they do give you an extension hose to add on to there, and you've got a bit of storage in here, perhaps for your levelling wedges and that sort of thing. Another little bit of storage in here, that's sort of in the back of your kitchen unit, and of course a smaller door at the back into your garage area. This of course is the biggest model in the range. There's also a GF80, which is a similar sort of layout with a choice of island bed or singles at the back, like in this one, but with a more cosy lounge, not quite as spacious obviously as this full 8.8 metre job. And then there's the GF70, which doesn't have a fixed bed, it has an end washroom, and of course then your cab drop down bed becomes your main sleeping area. But this is the king of the range, the very most expensive auto trail that you can have now, and the only thing really to add that this one hasn't got is the Media Plus pack, which gives you a satellite dish on the roof for an extra £1,000 instead of that TV aerial. Now I guess by now you'll be desperate to see what you get inside for your £100,000. But before we do, I should just mention that both doors are operated with the usual Fiat central locking fob. So unlock the door, the step comes out automatically, and then you've got the usual auto trail style door with your brolly mounted conveniently there, and a waste bin as well. Now, while we're on the subject of keys, I'll just mention that in addition to the Fiat key fob, you get 3 separate keys for the habitation side. Pity they couldn't incorporate everything into one key. But once you're inside, you'll forget details like that, because just look at the space you've got. Of course, this is nearly 9 metres of motorhome, so you'd expect space, but this lounge area is great. You could seat 8 people around here, so if you like to entertain, like to have space to bring your friends and family inside for a convivial evening, well, you've certainly got it here. The leather upholstery, as I mentioned, is an option. That's £1,699, and as standard you get 2 straight settees, no rear travel seats. On this one you've got the travel seat option, that's £800 and something, and that gives you 2 3-point seat belts in the back facing forwards. When you want to carry passengers, you just remove the centre section of that L settee. You will notice that although the floor is flat through from the cab through this part of the living area, the cab seats are actually significantly lower than the settees behind. And I noticed particularly in the evening last night when I just wanted to unwind, I found the settees a tad high. Once you've put your feet up on them, of course, it's not an issue, but if you just want to sit back, read a book, rather than actually put your feet up, or if you've got too many people in here to put your feet up, then I'd like these just a little bit lower. The other thing I should have mentioned when I was talking about keys is, interestingly, on this key fob it says Frontier Comanche A-Class. Well, it's not called a Comanche, but of course the layout is borrowed from the Comanche, which is Auto Trail's normal coach built top of the range tag axle. So the layout is proven, it's an existing layout. Really the difference is the cab area, and you also apparently get a different finish around the lounge walls, around the windows. You get this sort of leather style finish on the walls there. But the layout is an existing Auto Trail proven one. Not as popular, these big tag axles, as they used to be, but still there's a demand for them for those that want the biggest and the top of the range. Another great aspect is the lighting. You've got reading lights in all four corners of the lounge, lots of ambient lighting, even these flexible wand reading lights above the cab seats, which I really rather like. If you want to sit here and read a book, that's great. And you've got rear speakers too when you want to use the built-in cab radio. When it comes to meals, of course, your lounge becomes your dining room. Simply extract the table from its own storage locker back here, and then unfold the legs, and you've got a decent size dining table, certainly for 4 people, and this is a 4-berth, 4 travel seat motorhome, so that's fine. Better still, you can use your table outside. Plenty of room for everybody to get around it. Yeah, for dining that works pretty well. Then, when you've finished your meal and you've put it away, TV is hidden away here behind this black slatted door. That looks quite neat. It's a 21.5-inch TV, Avtex TV. Not as big as you perhaps might expect in such a big motorhome, but it is conveniently positioned there. Little strap to hold your remote control in, and I did bring some DVDs, but this TV doesn't have a DVD player. You'll need to attach any other device if you want to watch anything other than normal digital TV. The other thing I noticed is, although the cab seats spin very easily because you've got the extra width of the A-Class cab, and of course looking out forwards you've got that great big windscreen, which is as much a benefit on site as it is on the road. It gives you a lovely bright feeling to the front of the vehicle. Yeah, not only have you got that, and the cab seats, as I say, they spin round easily, but they don't go through a full 180 degrees, so you can't spin them round and put your feet up on the settees, which does seem a bit of a shame. That there is vast storage under these settees. You do need to remove the backrests for the bases to stay up, but lots and lots of storage. More on this side than over on the near side because you've got your gas locker intruding there, but lots and lots of storage. Pity there's no drop front access perhaps into this side. Then the windscreen at night, obviously you need to cover it, and there's an electric blind. I'm pretty sure this is another thing that's been borrowed from elsewhere in the Trigano group. If you're driving and you're being dazzled by the sun, when the engine's running, it will only let you lower it to a certain position to use it as a sun visor, but you can lower it a bit to give it that double function. But at night it does rather slowly come down. I think it's about 40 seconds I timed it to go all the way. And then once it's down in the evening, if you just want a bit of light and privacy, but you don't want other people staring in through your great big windscreen, you can lower it a bit from the top. How about that? Right, the final thing to mention at the front of the vehicle is, of course, because this is an A-Class, you've got a drop-down bed. Now, when I picked up the vehicle, I spent ages looking for a switch because, after all, you've got an electric blind on the windscreen, but no, the cab bed is actually manually operated. Just need to recline the cab seats right forward, undo a couple of clips. I've got no problem with it being a manual bed, by the way, because it's very easy to use. Another thing that's been borrowed from elsewhere in the Trigano empire. So the mechanism is proven, it's not something Auto Trail have had to develop themselves, and the bed is 1.85 metres lengthways, 1.32 metres across. The only thing it could do with is a roof vent, because from experience with that big glass area at the front of the vehicle, these cab beds can get rather hot if you're in the south of France or somewhere. Of course, it'll be your kids or perhaps your guests that sleep in the drop-down bed at the front, because you'll nab the island bed at the back. You can also have this Grande Frontier with twin single beds, but obviously we've got the island bed version here. And the bed measures 1.98 metres by 1.43, so a really good length. There are slightly wider island beds on the market, but not many longer than this. And there's good access around it, both at the sides and around the foot, partly because the washroom walls at the foot of the bed are curved, so that gives you a nice area to move around. You've got these leather style panels on the wall as well, and the usual his and hers wardrobes on either side of the bed. Only one of these has a mirror on the door, that's on the near side, but otherwise they're pretty much the same. Unusually, down at the side of the bed, underneath the bed itself, you've got these little drawers that slide out, drawers for your drawers perhaps. And then also under the foot of the bed you've got two much larger drawers, ideal for sort of folded jumpers and that sort of thing. Lots of lighting again in the bedroom, mood lighting, reading lights, everything you could possibly think of, but I was a bit disappointed that you can't really sit up in bed. This could do with being a bit higher, I think. But that aside, it's a firm bed, but a comfortable one. There's some hidden storage under the bed too. When you lift up the end of the mattress, nothing to support it, you do have to lift it and hold it, but there's some sort of concealed, hidden, secret storage underneath as well. You've got double USBs here and a main socket as well, so you can have your phone charging at the side of the bed. And I also noticed, and this is just one of those little details that I like because you don't always find it, you can put a mug of coffee on there and open the door and it doesn't knock your coffee on the floor. As you'd expect in a motorhome of this size and this class and this type of layout, you have an ensuite at the foot of your bed. Toilet door does the usual trick, swings round and closes off the bedroom from the front of the vehicle. But if somebody's using that drop-down bed at the front, they can't come and use these facilities without, well, effectively being in your bedroom. That's something to consider if you're thinking of using a Grande Frontier as a four-berth. Toilet facilities, toilet room is good, and nothing really much to say about that. Typical, little bit of worktop next to the wash basin. You've got your usual swivel set toilet, roof vent, decent amount of storage and little baskets to put things in so they don't all fall out when you open the door. Yeah, good practical toilet area. The only thing you will notice is that because you come up a step into the ensuite and bedroom area, the headroom is reduced here. It's just over 6 foot in the main bedroom part and in the toilet area, a bit less obviously as you go through the door, but in the shower it's reduced a little bit further still, so it's just under 6 foot in there. I think it's 1.81 metres, so that's something to consider if you're tall. And it does seem a shame when the bed has got such good length that headroom in the shower might be an issue for you. However, that said, I had a good shower in here this morning. It is a really, really good sized shower. I was very impressed by that. Good water pressure as well. And even though there's only one drain hole, perhaps the van might be sloping in the right way and I might just be lucky, but water did seem to flow away very easily. Little baskets for your shower gel and so on as well. So a very good shower compartment, and it even has a little drying rail at the top, somewhere to hang that wet coat that is an inevitability of motorhoming in the UK. Before we go for a drive anyway, last but by no means least is the kitchen. And this is perhaps where you'd expect a British A-Class to have an advantage over continental imports. You've certainly got all the equipment in this one. You've got 3 gas rings and a mains hot plate, separate grill and oven on this Thetford cooker, and then over on the other side, a 167 litre fridge freezer, and hidden above that behind a black panel is a Russell Hobbs 800 watt microwave. Your sink is recessed, stainless steel sink recessed under the counter, which is this sort of slate style textured finish. Not sure how practical that textured finish is, but time will tell on that one. Plenty of worktop. The drainer is inset into your worktop. A couple of main sockets in the corner, so handy for your kettle and toaster and so on. Cupboard space is pretty good, although I would have liked more of it to be in drawers. You have got one drawer under there in that cupboard and another one in this larger cupboard under the sink, and that one is fitted out for your cutlery. In there you've also got a slide out for tinned food and maybe a few bottles of squash, that sort of thing. Little drainer device, useful for your cutlery and so on to drip dry. And then up here you have got plate and cup racks, although I was rather disappointed when I took my mug of coffee out for the very first time. It pulled the rack off the wall. Not so good. And I was also slightly unsure about these top loggers. They do appear to have some form of positive locking, but not very positive. I think if you had anything too heavy stored up there and you took a roundabout very enthusiastically, it might just be an issue of something coming out. Also, these hinges are a bit floppy. I'd like them to be a bit more secure than that. A bit more, well, a bit more Germanic perhaps. Now, of course, there's no getting away from the fact that this is a big vehicle. And of course, you do need to have the relevant C1 licence in the UK to be even allowed to drive it. But once you're going forwards, you've got this panoramic visibility through the windscreen, you've got twin lens coach style mirrors which give you a good view aft. When you select reverse, you've got a big screen. The sat-nav turns into your reversing camera screen. So it's not as hard a lot of the time as you might think. However, do be aware that parking a vehicle this size isn't always easy. Think about when you need to stock up. Your fridge has run empty. Well, you're probably going to need some bikes or something to go to the village shop. You're certainly not going to want to park this at Sainsbury's or Tesco. However, the 9-speed automatic gearbox is great. 178 bhp, Fiat call it 180, but 178 bhp engine is the one you want. It's an upgrade from 160 on this vehicle, but well, you wouldn't want to buy a van of this size without it. And that 6-wheel tag axle chassis gives you fantastic stability when you're going up the A1 or the M1 or wherever. As for Auto Trail's side of things, well, rattles. Yeah, there are one or two, but it's not bad, it really isn't. A lot depends on the road surface that you're on. We've just been over some horrible bumps and it did rattle a bit, but it's no worse than a lot of others. Engine noise could be better suppressed though. Don't notice it when you're up to cruising speed, but at low speeds I did find that you could certainly do with a little bit more soundproofing. Again, it's not bad, but it could do with more soundproofing in the cab for engine noise. And the other thing that I really should compliment Auto Trail on is visibility forwards. Some A-classes feel quite daunting because you have a massive expanse of flat dashboard sticking out the front and you really can't tell where the corners are. But in this, you've got good forward visibility. I was really surprised on that. It's a really good aspect of this van. Another thing to think about with A-Class is windscreen wipers. Well, it's not rained while I've been driving it, but if you look at the pattern, they're set up for right-hand drive, of course. They do leave a panel here unswept, but again, no worse than a lot of others. The only way you get round that is with triple windscreen wipers, and then you're getting away from the standard Fiat setup. You also find that, as with so many other A-classes, this mirror does sometimes give you a little bit of a blind spot at roundabouts, and we're just coming up to one now. But yeah, the main thing to think about if you're contemplating buying one of these Grande Frontiers is the size. Maybe you'd be better off with a GF80, and if you're trading up from a Comanche, you'll be used to it. It's no different to a lot of other tag axle motorhomes in size. But if you're not used to driving a vehicle this big, it does need some consideration. So what's the verdict on this Grande Frontier? Well, you certainly get a lot of motorhome for your money, not just in the physical size of the thing, but the spec as well. Everything from the sat-nav and reversing camera to the alloy wheels and of course the Audi heating. It is a big beast to drive, and you need to consider that whether you might be better off with one of the smaller Grande Frontiers. But it's also a van that probably doesn't compete directly with the big German opposition. For one thing, it's quite a bit cheaper, although cheap in a relative term when you're talking about 100 grand. But of course it doesn't have the double floor and the winterization and onboard water tanks and the extra storage and everything that goes with that. There's one or two other areas too, like the relatively small water tanks, especially the waste tank, and things like the push-up roof lights where you'd expect to get the crank handle wind-up ones. But the A-class aspects, well, there's a lot that Auto Trail have actually got very right. For a first A-class in 15 years, quite impressed.